All right. So hello, everybody. As I mentioned before, my name is Kathy Burrell, and I'm an entrepreneur in residence at WBC. I was a former retailer and a fashion designer. So, I know of all of you in small business. If you or anybody wants to type in the chat again where you're from, that would be great. But if you also know the Indigenous territory that you're on today, go ahead and type that into the chat. And Netta will post some information that will allow you to see where you're actually, which traditional territory that you're on, which is great. And we'd also like to say that at the end of the session today, we're going to be offering a poll just on to make sure that everybody has got the information that they need in today's webinar. And if you've got any suggestions for a future webinar, we'd love to hear that as well. Okay, let's go over to what we offer at WBC. And we offer a lot of things that are helpful for any woman in small business. First of all, we offer loans up to $150,000 for women starting businesses, but we also start lending at $5,000. We offer business advice to entrepreneurs at all stages in their business. We have business advisors that can meet with you virtually for a 1-hour appointment, kind of to get you unstuck from maybe where you are. And it's great to speak with a business advisor. Our business advisors are generalists and they know a little bit about a lot of different things. We offer skills development workshops, very similar. This is more of an information webinar, but we also offer webinars on marketing and, websites and financial fitness, things like that. If you're interested in learning more about our webinars, we'd encourage you to sign up for our e-blast newsletter, and Netta's going to post the link to our e-blast. And if you sign up, you get an email from us once a month, and you can sign up for anything right from the email, which is great. We offer mentoring connections as well. We do peer mentoring one-to-one, and we do peer mentoring groups. So you would get sort of the information from a lot of women that are in similar but non-competing industries. So if you're interested in our mentoring program, again, the e-blast is a great place to start. And we offer a supportive community. We know that business is not easy, and doing a business on your own can be very challenging, especially in these times we're in. And so we want to make sure that you don't feel alone, or you don't feel completely stuck with a question that you don't think anyone can answer. Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge today, as I mentioned, I'm in Kelowna, that we're gathered here today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Okanagan Syilx people, and we recognize, honor, and respect the presence of Indigenous people, past, present, and future. Okay. And we'd like to welcome our panelist today, who's Alexander, and he's waving. I love that. So Alexander Emish has been our guide through these 3 webinars, and he's been fantastic, to kind of break down the scary government jargon into regular language that everyone can understand. He works for the government in a couple of ways. He's a policy analyst. He's a business engagement specialist, and he works for Pacific Assistance Canada, which is PAC, we call it. Okay, so let's get on with our webinar today. And and today we're going to be talking about presenting to the government. And this is the 3rd and last session in this series, as I was mentioning. It's the series was bidding on government contracts, ABC. So if you've missed any of the previous sessions, don't worry. You can access those recordings from our WeBC website on our resources page. And Netta is going to post the link to that. And today, Alexander is going to go through the bidding details of how to kind of, actually make your pitch to the government. And I'm delighted to welcome Alexander Emish. And he's going to share with you today the best practices, for creating your own bids so you stand out from the pack. So over to Alexander, and thank you very much for being here, everybody.
So just want to first say thank you, Netta, thank you, Kathy, and thank you, WeBC, for giving us the opportunity to speak to everyone today, all the entrepreneurs and business owners here. I'm going to give me a second while I go ahead and share my screen. All righty. So this has been part of a three-part series. But first, before we even begin, I just want to acknowledge that I'm a Vancouver resident and I'm on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So folks, this is our final event from this three-part series, where we first discovered federal procurement and ideas programs. Then we showed you how to follow opportunities, how to use the new website. And today we're concluding with bidding on contracts. So for these events, feel free to type your questions in the chat, and I'll address them during the questions period or throughout the presentation. So how this is going to work, we're going to first start talking about the Procurement Assistance Canada office. We will cover some material that were in other presentations just for those who's missed it, and it provides context. And then it's going to be about procurement strategies the government takes and the different pieces of a bid and their purpose. So with that, let's go ahead and begin.
Alexander, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Can you please put your slides on a full screen?
Oh, 1 second here.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, are you seeing it now?
Awesome, thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay. So everyone's seeing the display screen, the proper slides. Okay. So Procurement Assistance Canada, it's created by PSBC and to support smaller and diverse businesses in the federal procurement process. So what we do is we provide awareness, assistance, and education of the federal procurement process, and we're here to help you navigate your own procurement journey. We also talk about ideas, which is the Innovation for Defense Excellence and Security program. So if you do reach out, we'll listen to your concerns, we'll answer your questions, we'll help you understand the process and help you identify opportunities. And we partner with amazing organizations like WeBC to help reach different communities. So the objectives today is we're going to talk about the competitive nature of bidding, different types of competitive procurement, main elements of the solicitation document, how bids are evaluated, and how to follow up on the bidding process. So just in general, Government of Canada is one of the largest buyers of goods and services in all of Canada. We buy billions of dollars worth of goods and services, and you'd be surprised what we buy. I do encourage you to write out what your line of business is on the chat. Maybe we can see if there was a contract, old or new, that would fit your business category. So the department I'm part of, so Procurement Assistance Canada, is a branch of Public Services and Procurement Canada. This is the government's main procurement arm. And Government of Canada believes that competition in the buying process brings out the best value for money to Canadians. And more than anything, it's important that all procurement activities are done in an open, fair, and transparent manner, and that all suppliers have an equal chance of doing business with us. So this slide here is talking about types of procurement because a lot of folks here might be more interested in what's called low dollar value procurement. But it's important to know where that constraint is and when it goes into a competitive process where you would need to have that formal bid. So in general, you're seeing here, it says goods up to 25,000 could be done through a low dollar value procurement, and then services up to 2 million. So for procurements over these levels, departments and agencies, they actually work with my department post those opportunities. So here it's talking about trade agreements. And what's important about thinking of this is that these trade agreements in converse apply to you as well. If a good purchase is over, a procurement for goods is over $100,000, it opens up the Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement. And so you have the ability to apply for bids on other countries' websites above that threshold too, if they're part of the agreement. So you will generally, it is important to know when you're bidding, what type of trade agreements are open for that specific tender. For example, if it's over a certain threshold, you might be competing with European companies or American companies. So having that understanding when you're doing a bid is part of the decision-making process that you have to make, whether you're going to bid or not to bid. So competitive procurement, I mentioned this. This is when we're talking about competitive sourcing over $25,000 for goods and over $40,000 for services. When we do this, you're going to see us use the acronyms called request for proposal. It's going to be very specific of the goods and services required when you actually open up that document. But we also have other strategies too. We have a request for standing offer, or request for supply arrangement. Simply, you can think of these as putting yourself on a qualified list for a potential future procurement when and if needed. So for example, if you're a business consultant and you're interested in doing business consulting for under 100,000, you might register for a request for supply arrangement called Pro Services. So that's just, it'll put you on a list when and if needed. The government can reach out to you if you're qualified and allow you to compete on that opportunity. Okay, so request for proposal. So over $25,000 for goods. It can be used to issue goods or services, very specific on what's required. It's going to describe the evaluation criteria that will be used to choose a winning bid. So that's important because that's one of the first things that you might want to draw your attention to when you're looking at that PDF file. If you've had the opportunity to go to Canada Buys and open up a tender, you're going to look at that evaluation criteria. How are they evaluating whether you can win or not on this? So standing offer. This is, like I said, it's creating a list of pre-qualified suppliers. It's to provide goods or services at pre-arranged prices for this one. It's not a contract though until the buyer issues up a call-up against that standing offer list directly to a pre-qualified supplier. So that call-up document, that's going to serve as a notice to the supplier to deliver goods and provide the service. So a contract is then entered into each time a call-up is issued. So you can think of this like, let's just say you're selling keyboards. It might have specifics like it wants these keyboards to be French and English, need to be the color white, need to be a USB connector. And so government will accumulate folks who sell that with those the prices on it, create a list. And when and if needed, they may reach out to that list to do a call up against that standing offer. So supply arrangement. So this is going to be a little bit more complicated. It's used to solicit arrangements from suppliers for the establishment of a supply arrangement. That's that list I was talking about. And RFSA, which is the abbreviation of it, it can be published more than once a year. So if you were interested in Pro Services, you'll see that the end date for it is really way ahead, and it allows suppliers to continuously update their information or apply to it, get added into the arrangement. And then if and when needed, they could be competing on a contract. So supply arrangements are used when government departments or agencies are repeatedly buying the same goods and or services, but there are variables such as statement of work requirements that cannot be adequately defined in advance. So I'm just going to make up an example, but just use it as your own learning. So let's just say we were looking for chartered bus services. We know that they need to be secure. DND or Department of National Defense is the one who wants to utilize this service, is the end user. But they don't know when they're going to actually need those bus services. They know it's going to be in BC, but they don't know the cities exactly. That's just a made up example of what a supply arrangement would look like versus a standing offer. Okay, so there are some similarities. They could be national, regional. There are goods and services that are purchased regularly, and both are the goal is to pool a pre-qualified supplier list. Standing offers, though, they're issued using call-ups for contracts. The prices are predetermined and fixed. So my keyboard example, you're going to put your price on that. It's predetermined and fixed. It's all established under set terms and conditions. Supplier arrangements, they're going to be contracted using a competitive process. Prices are not fixed, and specific requirements are within the scope of the supply arrangement. So this slide here is talking about a little bit of modernization and procurement. So provinces and territories, as well as non-federal government entities, such as municipalities, school, hospital, aid agencies, public health and intergovernmental organizations, and others can access standing offers and supply arrangements issued by Public Services and Procurement Canada through the Canadian Collaborative Procurement Initiative. So what this means is if you're in a list, it means that your municipality or the province may access it. It just depends on whether they have that arrangement already existing. So a request for information. So you can think of these when you come across it. They're also called letters of interest. It's not a bidding opportunity. It's issued there to solicit information from the bidder community. So you can think of this as an opportunity to shape a requirement for a procurement and provide input and advice into a procurement process. So think of it this way: government isn't expecting to be experts at your industry. If you've been around for a while, it's looking to have experts like yourself and your industry help shape that procurement process, so that way we get best value. So we talked about competitive procurements, and I need to also inform you when contracts are awarded through a non-competitive process. So there are 4 reasons when that would happen. So if we have a pressing emergency, there's a fire in BC, we need to get things going immediately. It doesn't make sense for us to go through a multi-week evaluation team, large bid process when a fire's coming down, right? So that's a pressing emergency. That's a non-competitive approach. So low dollar value, let's just say you're selling business cards. That's what you do. You're a print shop. Makes no sense for the government to go through a formal tendering process, competitive process, if a department just needs 100 business cards. So you can kind of think this as regular business to business opportunities. You do your research, you see that, hey, government's going to all these events, or let's just say Parks Canada is touring different events. Well, maybe they need business cards. You're seeing it on Eventbrite. You can use the government electronic directory service. You can reach out to Parks Canada and say, hey, I see that you are attending all these events. Do you folks need any more business cards? We sell it for this much money. So that's an example of a low dollar value procurement. Once again, it doesn't make sense for it to go through a competitive process for something small like that. And for folks here who are like smaller size businesses, they're not looking to do a $30,000 printing contract. That could be an area of opportunity you might want to explore. There's also 2 other reasons. One is not in the public interest. You can imagine this if we're changing prison locks. Like I said before, RFPs are very specific. It's going to give you every single detail. Does it make sense for us to provide that type of information openly in the public? And then the last one is just if there's only one known supplier. So you can think of this as Microsoft Word, and there's only one known supplier as far as I know for that. So that would be another example for a non-competitive approach. Now, this one's interesting. So kind of if you're an entrepreneur, you don't really know what you want to do yet. Maybe this is your time to tune in a little bit. So a ACAN, or an advanced contract award notice, this is when it is perceived that government thinks that there's only one known supplier for a requirement. This means that they'll post an ACAN. So it's a little shorter. It gets posted on the website for around 15 days. It allows other suppliers to signal their interest in bidding on the opportunity and to demonstrate their ability to meet the requirement. So if no other supplier submits a statement of capabilities that meets that requirement set out in the ACAN, the contracting authority may proceed with awarding the contract to the identified supplier. So I'll give you an example of this because this is a personal one. I talked to a company, they saw this and they said, hey, they're a flight navigation company in BC, and they said, I see that government thinks that this Victoria company is the only one who can do flight navigation, but we do it and we're up in Chilliwack, and we think that we're going to be competitive for this. Well, the information I could give them is that they could submit, they could challenge that ACAN, and they did. And what happened next was that opportunity opened up to a competitive procurement. They competed against that other company and they were successful. It was a multi-million-dollar contract. So if you don't really know what you want to do, but you're curious about what government thinks there's only one supplier for, ACANs would be an interesting tenders opportunities to scope out and look into. Okay, so I just am opening up the notes. I see here, oh, Netta, I see your comment. I guess I shared the wrong screen earlier, so apologies on that. And I see here that Sheila has responded, she's in cleaning services. Well, I assure you, Sheila, we buy a lot of janitorial services and cleaning services. We have offices like the RCMP, which need janitorial services. There are tender opportunities available for that. So I'm just going to go back now mentally, the PowerPoint. So from the bidder's perspective, there's generally 5 principal steps to most bidding processes. So you first want to review the solicitation document thoroughly. And when you're doing that, give yourself a break, get yourself a big cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever your preference is, and go through that. I would recommend starting with Annex A or looking at the evaluation criteria if you just want to scan it. But it's a good idea once you become serious, you know that you're competitive, you know that you want to do this, read it from A to Z. Then you're going to want to determine whether you want to bid or not. So I brought up the trade agreements earlier. There are other factors too. That's your call to make based on the information that you see. You can also ask us too, but we're not going to be consultants for you. You have to make that call as a business yourself. And then if you decide to bid, you're going to want to collect information on your bid, and you're going to want to prepare your bid document and submit your bid, and submit it on time. That is very, very important. You have to submit it on time. Okay, so we're going to get a little bit more into reviewing the solicitation document now. And if there's any questions, folks, feel free to send them out. I'll be happy to respond. So, folks, every bid is unique. Every solicitation is unique. You have to read it carefully. You're going to follow the instructions, read all the terms and conditions thoroughly. Skimming a solicitation document and you miss out on one key requirement could result in a non-bid. So let's just say we are looking to purchase police dogs. And one of the key requirements is that they must be German Shepherds. And you skipped out on that key requirement, or you didn't feel like it was important. And you turn in a bid, you spent a week, writing up this beautiful bid, explaining why a Malinois is just as good as a German Shepherd. If you did turn that in without even contacting the contracting authority and saying, hey, would you be willing to accept, Malinois dogs, you're going to be considered non-responsive. I don't want that to happen to anyone here. It's important that you don't make assumptions. So that's largely what my story was about, is there was an assumption that any dog would work for the RCMP or for a police unit. If you're uncertain about any aspects of the document, or you find errors in the document, there's a contracting authority. Their name is on that document, on the solicitation. You can reach out to them during the questions period. So you can submit your questions in writing. There is a deadline for that. And the thing is, when you do that, I mentioned before that government is fair, open, and transparent. Answers to your questions received will be compiled, and they'll actually appear as amendments that are publicly seen. So if you said, hey, Malinois dogs are just as good as German Shepherds, this is the reason why, and the contracting authority said, you know what, good point. We're going to change that. We're going to allow for Malinois dogs to be in there as well as German Shepherds. That's going to appear publicly. So when you're looking at a tender and you're very interested, you're competitive for it, you're going to want to make sure that you're following that opportunity. You can click a little follow button on it and get updates on those amendments. That way you don't miss out. I'll give you another example too. Let's just say we're buying metal USBs Someone asked the contracting authority, why can't they be rubber? And you submitted your bid because you didn't look at the amendment that rubber was now accepted as metal USBs. It's my assumption your bid would be more expensive and potentially not as competitive as those submitting rubber. So we're going to take a look at a sample solicitation document, see what it contains. So you can, hopefully you can kind of see, you can kind of see the image over there. You can see generally what it looks like. Reminder, all bids are unique, or sorry, all tenders are unique. So they may have a little bit of different organization, but you would still see major points to it. So the general information piece, this is going to provide you a general description of the requirements, and it also identifies any security requirements. So for those who are interested in janitorial services and cleaning services, if you're going to be in an RCMP building, you may have security requirements that you would need to establish and be certified for in advance. I will cover security clearances later on in this PowerPoint, but it's just something for your awareness. There's also going to be bidders instructions. These provide clauses and conditions applicable to the solicitation document. It also states the bidder agrees to be bound by the clauses and conditions contained in the parts of the solicitation document. This part includes information about site visits, bidders conferences, and applicable laws, as well as a bid challenge and recourse mechanism for suppliers. So there are sometimes there are mandatory bidders conferences and site visits that are part of the solicitation requirement. And if you don't attend that, then you'll be disqualified. So once again, I'm bringing up the cleaner because you were the one who messaged first. So let's just say they want a Esquimalt naval base cleaned, and they have a bidders conference. Maybe they want to do a site visit, so they can tour you around and say, hey, this area here you clean, this area here you clean. And folks, I'm making up a story to help everyone understand here, just so that you might not actually see it specifically. That's important. If you miss that, you might be, if you don't attend that, you'll be disqualified. So just really important, once again, review the solicitation document carefully for these details. So another part is bid preparation instructions. This provides bidders with instructions on how to prepare their bid. This could be like your page numerations, the number of copies. They're going to be that specific. They might say every page needs to be pink and another one needs to have an orange on the top left. Make sure that you prepare your bid with those recommendations. Evaluation procedures. So this is very important. It is the basis of selection. It's going to describe the evaluation process and how the contract will be selected. The evaluation criteria is the most important part of the solicitation document. So remember, I said before, you might want to check out, statement of work, as well as the evaluation procedures. You want to know how you're going to be judged to be successful on this. Is it just going to be the lowest price that meets the mandatory? Is it a combination of technical score and mandatories? Is it just technical score within a stipulated budget? They're going to tell you how that works. And just to myth bust a bit, so the federal tenders are not always going to be lowest bid that meets mandatories. There are other strategies that government uses with evaluation procedures and basis of selection. So certifications, this could include employment equity requirements, certifications regarding if you're a former public servant or you have a conflict of interest. So a supplier certifies with their bid that, if they're on a board of members or director, it's not been changed, no one's been convicted or discharged of an offense. So if there are certification requirements, do you investigate what those type of requirements are? And resulting contract clauses. It's part 6. So this includes the clauses and conditions that will apply to any resulting contract. So you can kind of think of this, it tells you the amount of time you have to complete the work, information like that. And statement of work, you already heard me mention it probably 3 times by now. This is, if you're looking at, you open up the PDF on a tender notice, and you only have 10 minutes to see whether you're going to read the full document or not. Check out the statement of work, check out evaluation procedures, okay, and the basis of selection. This is going to provide you clearly the detail and nature of the required good or service. The statement of work is a narrative description of the work required and stipulates the deliverables or services required to fulfill the contract. Or even the various phases of the project are also identified and summarized in this annex. And I do, folks, encourage you, write your line of business on the chat. I will try to personalize the story for you, as I've been working with regarding cleaning services. So feel free, safe space, go ahead and write what you do. Or even if you don't do anything, right? You're just an entrepreneur looking for opportunities. That's fantastic to know too. So there may be other multiple annexes attached to the solicitation document. In this particular example, a scanned copy of the security requirements checklist is included as an annex. So in this case, this is other possible annexes like Annex C. It could be a non-disclosure agreement. Other annexes could include evaluation criteria or geographic regions, corporate profiles, and authorization letters. Once again, it's important to read all of the tender notice or the RFP or RFSA, RFSO, some of those descriptions I made. You want to make sure you fully understand what government is looking for, how to deliver it, and how you're competing. So I mentioned before to bid or not to bid. We don't want anyone, there's a lot of mom and pop shops here, a lot of small businesses here. We don't want you to waste your time or think that government's a massive gold mine. It's not, it's a formal process. It's fair, open, and transparent. You have to make that business call, whether this is worth it for you or not. You look at a tender opportunity, it's the perfect tender opportunity. I'm going to use a cleaning example. It's literally right next to your workplace. You know that you can do this work. You know the folks around you that might compete on this. You feel you're more competitive than them, that you provide a great service, or you are better at writing out technical criterias and all that. That's going to be your call to make, whether you're going to bid on that tender notice or not. So a couple points here. Is your business capable of offering the service and good requested? Does your business meet the evaluation criteria? Let's just say it's saying you need to have been in business for a year in order to apply. So that's a pro services example. So you need to at least have, before you get approved, you need to have your business around for at least a year. If you don't have that, you can, of course, reach out to the contracting authority, say, does this need to be there? Is it possible to change that? But in general, if you really see it and you know that's probably not something they're going to change, make that call that you might not be competitive due to the evaluation criteria. Is your business willing to accept all the terms and conditions? That could be payment terms. Government typically pays after the satisfactory delivery of the good and service. So that means that you wouldn't be paid up front. You would have to deliver that good or service based on those payment conditions, and then receive your income from that. So is your business prepared to accept the basic payment pricing method? I just mentioned that. Or should you partner with another supplier? So I'll give you a story. I just talked to a business who was looking at a tender, and they felt they were competitive, but they had one specific part of that evaluation criteria they didn't meet, but they knew someone who did meet it. Well, they decided to bid as a joint partnership. That way they can combine both of their strengths to be competitive on that specific tender. So that's something else to consider as well. Look out for constraints. Is there a particular time, geographic location, or security requirement that would be challenging for your business to meet? You can also, is your business competition, are you capable of winning against them? And also ask clarifying questions. Can these dogs be Malinois instead of German Shepherds to the contracting authority during the questions period? The point is, don't make assumptions and be sure to check the tender notice page for any amendments to the solicitation document. So security requirements, these are not going to be in all tenders when you're looking at a bid, but you might see some that are. For example, my story about cleaning for the RCMP, likely there'd be a security clearance requirement for that. If that is the case, how it works is that if you don't have the security clearance right now, and you know that you're competitive and you want to bid, you're still going to bid on time, but you're going to also reach out to the contracting authority and let them know that you need a sponsorship for a specific security clearance process. So the important thing is you still bid on time. The second thing is you need to reach out to the contracting authority regarding being allowed to compete in the process for security clearance. There's also a contract security program as well. So that will give you more detailed information about security clearances. So they have their own website. They also do webinars as well too. So if you're interested, you can check that out. They're the experts in that. But just in general, what I really want to, mention when it comes to security clearances is don't expect these to be in all of the government tenders. It makes sense when it is. It's like if you have sensitive government information like military plans or personal information like financial records, protected B stuff, first, last name, address, those are going to require a security clearance. And CSPS, that's that organization I was referring to. They can provide you with information, forms, and support you require to begin the screening process. So, let's just, when you're going through this, PSPC requires mandatory electronic fingerprints for its suppliers to meet the RCMP criminal record check requirement. The process applies to any organization that works or intends to work with Government of Canada contracts with security requirements. And these electronic fingerprints are required for all levels of security requests. So this could be reliability or secret or top secret. So PSPC may require mandatory credit checks. These are for organizations that are competing for tenders that have security requirements. This is just part of the overall assessment. I'm not going to focus too much on this, folks. I think it's it's process oriented, and you'll see it if you see it. There's organizations that will help you for that, and these are just some information that you might want to know about if that does occur. You can talk to our office too. You can reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you if you see a requirement and you don't necessarily remember all the information today. I'll be sharing my email and my LinkedIn at the end of the webinar or end of the presentation. Yep, there's more information on security requirements. So you can go to these different website links. Here's the phone number too, if you really wanted to contact them to get that detailed information. And we'll just be moving on here to the more fun parts of this presentation. If there are such things, I know federal procurement is very exciting. Once again, folks, feel free to write in the chat, write your line of business. Love to know what you folks are doing and seeing if I can customize this a little bit to yourself. So this is more about security clearances, just in general. Just review the documents. If there's security requirements, review it. Monitor any solicitation for amendments. I gave you that example of the USBs changing from being metal to rubber. That's something you want to know before you're bidding. And there may be times when you need to get a hard copy of materials or samples. You're sending in clothing. You compete on a tender and you're sending in a sample of the clothing material that you're using for maybe Canadian Armed Forces. You may need to send in a material or a sample in that case. So preparing your bid. So just like companies get many applications and CVs in a human resource hiring process, buyers are going to receive many bids during the solicitation process. So make it easy for them to find information they need to evaluate within your bid so that the company can be seen as qualifying and moving on to the next step. When preparing your bid, be sure to follow the format stipulated in the solicitation documents. That's my joke about every other sheet being pink or having an orange on the top left. Make sure you follow that format. Make sure you sign that you agree. And it shows the little arrow there, and there's a reason for that, because folks sometimes will submit an amazing bid, but they'll forget to sign. That's important because it shows that you've accepted the terms and conditions. And that signature block is usually found on the first page. When you're preparing your bid, you may be asked to provide your bid in bound sections, like a technical section, a management section, a financial section, and certifications if required. The financial and technical sections must follow the format outlined in the solicitation document, and make sure you answer each item in accordance with the evaluation criteria, making sure you provide all requested information and clearly demonstrate your ability to do the work. You will need to include all necessary supporting information that shows you meet the required criteria. This could include technical specifications, proof of certifications, resumes, or descriptions of past projects. So if you see a technical section, this is the section of your bid where it's usually you're going to provide the most details. It's a chance to show the evaluation team that you understand the requirements. So follow the format requested in part 3 of the solicitation document. Use the statement of work as a reference guide. That statement of work was Annex A, if you remember me mentioning that a couple times, and use your own words to describe what and how you would do the work if you were awarded the contract. While you will want to find key terms that are used in the solicitation document and try to incorporate them into your bid, don't just copy the terms of reference in the statement of work. So start with a short introduction that includes an evaluation of the current situation and the need for the project, the objectives of the proposed work, the reasons for carrying it out as proposed, and the benefits that will be delivered. Indicate and substantiate the work plan methodology, the techniques that you are proposing. Discuss feasibility, the degree of the success that's expected. Identify any problems anticipated and your contingency plans in the event that problems arise. So I'm just going to give an example again. This is a made up one, but let's just say there was there could be a fire at the RCMP and you want to bid for that cleaning contract. What is your contingency plan if that happens? What is the contingency plan if a contractor is sick that day and isn't able to show up to clean that specific room? So that's part of what this is talking about. Identify specific tasks and deliverables and schedule for completion or delivery. So you can imagine this as if you're building a website, the tasks that you would be doing, when you would expect those to be delivered, and that type of schedule. So it's going to take 2 weeks to do the front end, 5 weeks to do the back end of the website, QA process, like all of that is just an example of identifying task and deliverables and schedule. Provide information about how many people you will assign to the various tasks and their level. Give their title, not their salary, and how many hours or days they will be assigned to the task. So cleaning example again, how many people does it take to clean the cafeteria for a Department of National Defense? So how many hours or days that would take, what their titles are and their levels, what type of tasks they'd be accomplishing. Note that those requirements apply to approximately 20% of solicitations and less than 10% for other departments. In general, when I said that all tenders are unique and you have to have the patience to go read the full PDF, that is important. So these are just, when I'm talking, sometimes I'm making up an example to teach you what this is trying to say. But in general, these are things you need to be aware of when you're turning in your bid to the government or even a private sector as well. I'm sure you could use some of these same principles regardless of the entity that you turn in your bid to. So this is continuing on the technical section. Make sure you respond to all requirements, clearly detailing how they will be met. Provide evidence of your ability to provide the good or service. You do this by referring to a past project or deliverables. So for example, you're interested in business consulting. Well, what businesses have you consulted? What projects have you done in the past? That will help evaluate your competitiveness. It's often useful to show flexibility and give alternate approaches to these as well. Be responsive to all evaluation criteria and use simple language. Do not assume the contracting authority knows your organization and skills because you've dealt with them before. They can't use that information. It's just purely based on your bid. Even if you've won 7 contracts for the same thing with the government, each bid is evaluated solely on its contents, and members of the evaluation team are prohibited from using prior knowledge to award points or meet mandatory criteria. If it isn't written on the bid, it's not going to be evaluated. Okay, now we're going to talk about management section. So once again, these apply for different bids, not all bids. So this one might include a management section for this example. So you'd want to introduce your team and demonstrate how they meet the required qualifications. You're going to want to include any corroborating information such as resumes, how you'll meet the quality standards and other requirements listed in the solicitation documents. If you'll be subcontracting part of the work, the same information should be provided to each for each subcontractor. So this is talking about the financial section. So provide a detailed breakdown of the quoted price in terms of its cost elements. The solicitation document will tell you what cost items will be considered in the financial evaluation. No other costs will be considered, and prices must appear in the financial section or financial bid only. So there's two principal methods for payment. These are based on the value and term of a contract and could provide for interim payments during the course of the contract. It depends. So firm fixed is the most commonly used method of payment, and it's used when it's possible to predict the costs involved, and it is reasonable to assume the contractor, if not any of the risks and responsibilities. So just in this case, the contractor agrees to complete the performance of work before being paid, and the total amount of payment agreed cannot be exceeded. Okay, so that one, as it says, it's the most commonly used method. So you must complete your work satisfactory delivery of good or service before being paid. Now, cost plus contracts are used when there is some level of uncertainty in cost or for longer projects. It can be used when there are potential unknown cost risks. In this case, the contractor will be reimbursed for all allowable costs incurred during the performance of the contract upon receipt of incremental invoices. So I want you to think of this if we are building a bridge and it's going to take 3 years. The price of aluminum might change. The price of these metals could be fluctuating all over the place. So that is when you would see a cost plus contract or cost plus clause within that contract. So just be aware of that. Just note, though, that advance payments are not permitted except under highly unusual circumstances. And this is important to note, as you will be required to cover any expenses incurred until you are paid for your good or service under the terms of the contract. Okay, do we have any questions so far?
Nothing in the chat as of yet there, Alexander.
Okay, fantastic. We will have a questions period at the end. Feel free at that point to come off the mic and talk to me, or you can also just write it in chat and I will respond. So now we're in the section of submitting your bid. You know, you got it all wrapped up. You followed all those rules, all the things I was saying. So a couple things to review before you submit your bid. Make sure you know when your bid is due. If you were in a lot of the other the webinars I did, the first thing I would look at when I opened up a tender was the due date. If it's due in a day, you're probably not going to have time to actually bid. So you want to look at that first when you're before you really start anything, because bids are not going to be accepted after the date and time indicated. And you can check frequently for amendments to the deadline. It might have an extension on the deadline. So make sure your bid is also delivered to the location specified in the manner stipulated in the solicitation document. It's just important to know that Government of Canada cannot accept bids delivered after the deadline for any reason. Also, verify how your bid will be submitted. So what we're doing, you may have seen, is that Canada Post Connect's online system may be a method of supply or of supplying your bid. It's going to actually say how you're going to deliver it. Maybe it'll say send it into this specific office. Just it's important to know that you're reviewing how you're going to deliver this bid and the time frame in which you have to submit it. So there's also tender opportunities that are posted through the SAP Ariba system. You will need to register in SAP Ariba to bid on those opportunities. So you can actually review our Getting Started page on Canada Buys if you want to know that. Just each procurement opportunity will clearly detail the delivery method to submit a bid. Also, be sure to sign the document. Remember how I showed before that little arrow? That it's very important that you sign that document, otherwise it's not going to be reviewed. It means you didn't agree with the terms and conditions. Just ensure your proposal follows the format outlined in the instruction to bidders. And finally, review your bid to make sure all required elements are addressed and completed. Sometimes having someone else review your bid at this point can be invaluable. A reminder, my office cannot do that. That would be not fair. So just make sure that you are really having all of your details organized, that you've clearly identified how you are meeting the mandatories and the technical criteria. If you have any certifications, make sure you sign. Just also in general, during the evaluation process, the buyer may contact you for clarification on your bid, but the evaluation or contract award process will not be delayed. So be sure you respond to any questions by the date and time stipulated on the request. So this section is a little bit about PSPC's effort to simplify procurement processes and move to electronic services. So there's Canada Post Connect service that you might see as a requirement to deliver your bid in. So no harm in registering in advance. That's free. So just look into how they're going to ask you to deliver it. And so we're going to now start talking a bit more about bid evaluation. I'm hoping I still have time. I know I'm running a little short. I'll be a little quicker on this, and we can cover this in a private chat if you feel like you need more time. So evaluation criteria, I said this is one of the most important things to look at in advance. This is to ensure fairness. Financial information is assessed separately from technical information. Technical merit is going to be defined in the solicitation, and it combined with price equals best value. Best value is defined in the basis of selection. So evaluation can be based on mandatory technical criteria only, point-rated technical criteria only, or a combination of mandatory technical criteria and point-rated technical criteria. So make sure you review mandatories. Those are all musts, will, and shall. Those are pass-fails. If you submitted that bid with that Maltese dog and it was saying mandatory is a German Shepherd, that would be a pass-fail issue, okay? Point-rated criteria can be used to establish the minimum requirements that a bid must meet to be considered responsive. The minimum points that must be achieved and the maximum points that can be achieved for each criterion are identified in the solicitation documents. So just to kind of give you an idea what this could be, so we're still talking about police dogs. Some of the technical criteria or the point-rated evaluation criteria could be how many years you have sold dogs for work purposes. 3 years get you a certain amount of points, 5 years gets you another amount of points, 10 years gets you another amount of points. So these are ways to evaluate value-added factors over and above the mandatory requirements. So here's some examples of basis of selection. You've already heard me mention this throughout the chat, throughout the presentation. Your lowest priced, your best overall value, your highest technical bid. I feel it's a little self-explanatory now, and I do have to accelerate a little bit because I know we're running out of time. But if you have questions about this, you're welcome to message me. It's just important that you know the basis of selection in advance. And here's a graph that kind of shows you some breakdowns of this, how, depending on the basis of selection, different winners would be awarded. The lowest price responsive bid was company B, but then the lowest cost per point was company A. So these are different ways government evaluates proposals, and all of that will be clear and stipulated within the tender document. And we've mentioned this a couple of times about non-responsive bids. You didn't meet the mandatories, those pass-fails. Your minimum requirements for the point-rated section was not achieved. Your bid exceeds the level of funding for the project, or you forgot to sign, forgot to add your certification. Mandatory documents were unfortunately not included in the bid. So let's just say, and this is really important, folks, let's just say you competed, you weren't successful, and you want to know why. We have a process for that. I recommend it for all suppliers who have bid, whether you win or you fail. You can actually have a debriefing with the contracting authority. They'll evaluate what was good about your bid and what was not so good about your bid, or if you missed a mandatory requirement and you forgot to sign. It's really good to go and have these debriefings. Don't think of it as an argument, just think of it as a learning experience. It's not going to be no like disputes are going to be resolved through this process. This is just really to understand better on why you were successful or why you weren't. So the next time you can be more competitive. So best practicing, read all the terms and conditions, meet your mandatories, respond to all sections regardless of point value, fill in and sign all required elements, submit your bid on time and in the right manner and place, and contact the contracting authority, whether that be in a debriefing for a security clearance or having a question specific to the contract or the tender notice, pardon me. These are shoulds. Organize your bid so it's complete, concise, and precise. You want to include front page on your bid, reference number, file number, date, and your contact information. Remember in those slides before I said the contracting authority might reach out to you. So do include your contracting information, write your executive summary, include a table of contents, put your logo or business name on every page, pay particular attention to sections that may carry more points, and have fresh eyes. Do a quality review of your bid. Have someone else review that you trust, and request a debrief, regardless if you win or lose. So some things to avoid. So there's this section here is if you feel there's some suspicious activity that went on, some type of bid rigging or something, we have a hotline for that. You can contact this hotline. It won't give you any money for doing it, but this is important that everything is done ethically, it's done fair, open, and transparently. If something you feel is illegal happening, someone calls you and says we should form a cabal or whatever, there is a website for that, and that you can write a form on, and a number. So as we close out this presentation, we've covered a lot today, folks. We've covered strategies to bid, what to look out for, some basic terminology as well. We're going to now cover some resources and some seminars to close us out. So we have a new website that's called canadabuys.canada.ca. It's way more modern. If you were on the other webinars, you could just type in search, like a Google search, and find different opportunities. You can register in the electronic procurement solution, SAP Ariba. Our old website is now more of an information repository. So it can teach you information about registration, key procurement contacts. It also has upcoming events and seminars. So if you really were interested in security clearances and you want to talk to the agency, it'll show there. So the old website still has value to it, but the new website is what you're going to want to look for new opportunities. And we have these different seminars, like I mentioned, the security clearance one. But if you're interested in supplying professional services, we have a lecture for that, or a seminar for that. Today we covered bidding on opportunities, and we've already covered the finding opportunities, and we went and did a intro one, which is not on this list, as our first webinar. We have offices everywhere. We're in Pacific region, and I will share my contact information, and my colleague Rodney is here as well. I'll share his contact information. You can reach out to either of us. We're here to help you. We provide awareness, assistance, and education of the procurement process. The folks that we talk to are small and medium enterprises and diverse businesses. We have information that you might find relevant for you to make those calls, or you to make business decisions, or just ways to make the website work for you. So you can find lead opportunities or information on what to pursue if you're an entrepreneur. So in general, your next steps, just reach out to us. That would be the best way to do it. Still come to these VBC webinars. They're fantastic. And we have a website too. You can click on, request a call back. but we're here for you, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. So once again, thank you for this opportunity to chat with everyone today. I hope you learned something. And if you want to further link up, my colleague Rodney has posted my name in the chat or my email in the chat, and I will also post my LinkedIn. And I will pass the mic back to WBC. So Netta or...
Thank you,
Kathy.
Alexander. Yes, that was great. We really appreciate, you being with us today and all through this 3-part series. So I don't know whether we're going to have time for questions today, but you're welcome, anybody on the call, to send us an email at WBC or directly contact Alexander. He's the man when it comes to questions about procurement. So he would be the person that could possibly put you in touch with somebody, or again, answer your question and move on from there. So anyway, thank you so much, Alexander. This was great. And I wanted to remind everybody that we'd like to ask for your feedback on today's webinar by doing a small poll. If you could fill that out, that would be fantastic. Just sort of tell us how we did. And again, if you've got any, Alexander did a nice list of the things that he speaks about. And if one of those things really struck you, go ahead, or something else related to procurement or anything you like. We'll take a minute or two to finish the poll. And I just wanted to highlight some upcoming events. We've got webinars on the 13th. And in January, we're starting our financial fitness series, which is fantastic. Again, a 3-part series. And I would suggest that you get on that e-blast right away and get signed up, because we have been sold out every time. And in February, we're starting some new things too. So yeah, it's again, the e-blast is your cue, and Netta should have typed that in the chat. If you've got any questions, get back to us. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you again, Alexander, for being with us. It's been our pleasure to host you for these 3 webinars. And I think, again, it's such a great opportunity to be one-to-one with somebody who can explain to you the process. You don't have to read it in a book, and that you're there for questions as the process goes on. Like you said, you can't be a consultant to somebody, but certainly you can answer some really important questions that they might need along the way. And we really appreciate that. Okay, we're going to close out the poll, and I hope everybody has a great day.